So let's jump into a little bit of pricing beat.
Yeah. You had some stuff, right, Benjamin? I think on some pricing changes that were happening in the market.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I wanted to go through. One is I saw a Acuity price increase out there on controls. I've been seeing controls pricing increase for some time in this advanced controls space. I've also seen controls pricing decrease in a lot of other areas where I would say they were probably overpriced to compete in the market, right? So there are areas, for instance, Acuity purchased Adura, and it became XPoint, and Adura and Daintree were head-to-head competitors in the early days, and Enlighted came in just, was like number 3 right after those two had been battling it out. And Daintree was half the price of Adura, right? And that was a challenge for Adura because Adura was per fixture control and Daintree could do zonal control, so it just ended up being half the price. But they were both battling for ROIs in a retrofit space. And so the pricing wasn't necessarily that they were quote unquote too high. It's that they just, were always weighed against or measured against our ROI on a project. So here we are fighting in that arena. All these independent companies, Adura, Enlighted, Daintree, they're all small startups, venture capital backed, all going after the same retrofit projects, trying to hit ROIs. Then they get bought by Acuity, GE, Siemens, and go on down the line. And all of those have agents. And now they get shoved into an agent channel that is competing with Encellium and Enlight and every other control system, Lutron, and all these other control systems that are out there. And those are all ridiculously expensive. And I remember the day that we stumbled into that agent network where, retrofit doesn't belong, right? Or hasn't ever existed for years and years and years, and agents are trying to modify their business model to fit there. But I remember, when Daintree got purchased by GE, and here we are sitting there with agents, and we're looking at, other control systems and how much they're charging. We were a fraction, a tenth of what those systems were, but nobody cared.
Because it was new construction, right? It's new
construction. I remember. I'm looking at the building right here. When I first started working at Daintree, just outside my window is a building, is the Long Beach courthouse that was being built in 2010. And we were fighting to get on that spec. I don't know why, but we were. Just that was one project. And it was spec'd, I can't remember, I think Lutron, Enlight, who knows? Some standard new construction control system. And we were looking at the spec, and we were realizing that they were doing circuit level control, no dimming, that just go down the list, right? And they were leaving so much on the table and probably paying 4 times as much for it. So we went to the city and we said, hey, come on, let's do this. Like, we'll save you twice as much energy and it'll cost you half as much. And they said, you know what? It's just not moving the needle. Really? Not moving the needle? No. Gosh, are you kidding me? Man, the people that spec this, I mean, it's all a part of a bundle with, it's been stamped by this engineer and this architect's worked on it, and that, I'm not changing that. So there's these channels that exist in this new construction world that can establish a system. Everyone gets to make money on it. And so what I think you're seeing here, because we've seen price increases from everyone, current, you name it, is just it's essentially a resettling of the market to the new sales channel. It isn't a direct retrofit sale anymore. It's going through the channel. It's got agents, it's got distributors.
And doesn't that make that really challenging though? Because I mean, when you look at the promise of IoT, it's because the dropping price of sensor hardware, right? It's plummeting pricing. You can get sensors for a dime a dozen now, and you can put them everywhere, and you can monitor everything and collect all this data. That's what makes IoT affordable. And then you go and you try to mark it up like a a new construction build of, that's a real challenge. And I don't know if that's the right path for all the IoT advocates out there. How do you really push it forward? Maybe it's back to the cell. I don't know, but.
Well, I would say, it goes back to what I was saying earlier too, which is now the challenge is on us to sell it.
To sell
Right?
the
the IoT vision.
The IoT. Yeah.
These manufacturers they feel ready and comfortable now that they are now providing the backbone IoT infrastructure.
The value add is there. Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right there. I mean, the fact that you can monitor everything and you can get predictive analytics and everything else, that's truly valuable, right? Back to your example of a factory and a conveyor belt goes down. Well, if it's down for 45 minutes, that company just lost $500,000. But if they were monitoring that with a sensor that was talking and analytics and stuff. Yeah.
And now they're all getting ready. Now they're all getting ready for asset tracking and people tracking and space tracking, space utilization. All that is now bigger than it was before. And that's why I think they raised their prices.
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself, so you brought up the really important point, which is sensor costs are going down. And we all think about that. We think about this ubiquitous network of sensors where they're going to cost pennies, right? Maybe sensor and everything. I always said that. I'm like, wait till we have a sensor in my water bottle. And it's going to happen. It's just going to be built into the plastic. It's so cheap. And I think that that is trying to actually be offset, because who wants to sell a 1 penny sensor? Right? I don't. So whoever's going to sell that needs to be selling $1 water with the 1 penny sensor in it. So it's about the person who packages it up into the project. And if all the hardware goes to zero, right? If that's where it's headed, if everything dumps to zero, and it's just because it's technology, it's so cheap, you can put it in everything. It's happening with the lighting industry, right? Yeah. When in 2012, when LED troffers really started and hit, right? We were paying like $200 for them, 210, 250. And then it was like 180, 160. Hey, that's great. I'll do 1,000 troffers for $200 a pop. Boom. But then all of a sudden it hit $100, and people are like, "Oh man, it's same project was 200,000, now it's 100,000. Then it's 50. Same project was 200,000, now it's 50,000. I didn't do anything other than lost 80% of my revenue just because the cost of these fixtures are coming down, and now everybody in the lighting industry wants to get out of that commodity. Well, the same thing's happening with sensors, right? So what are they going to do? They're going to make it up on software. And I think the real challenge we have is they're going to look at that machine that if it goes down, you're going to lose 500,000. And next thing you know, XYZ software guy is going to want $300,000 for that sensor to monitor it. You say, no one's going to pay $300,000. That's like a life insurance policy, right? My $1 million policy, I don't pay $1 million for that. That's the point. That's what insurance is, right? I pay $50 a month for it. So I think that's what needs to get vetted. You have all these hardware manufacturers like, I did $1 billion last year, and it's going to be $500 million next year because the cost just went down. When has that ever happened? Right. Think about it. Think about metal halide since the 40s and 50s all the way till the 80s. Those fixtures didn't go down, they went up. Metal went up, ballast went up, lamps went up, everything kept going up. It was a great, nice, little steady incline. The whole industry is now doing this.
The other way.
Think about that. Complete. Now all of a sudden everyone's like, we're software companies. Well, heck yeah.
That's plan B always. We're a software company.
Holy smokes, I make software. Yeah, not quite. But I like it. So then what do they do, right? So then we go to these folks and we say, all right, software guy, let's tap your API. Well, let's use some of that data and they say, okay, well, you know how my fixture was $100 last year and it's $50 this year? We're going to charge you $50 for the software to make up for it. And you say, guys,
per fixture, per year,
per $100,000 a year for an energy report, Right. So that's where our challenge is, and we need to be advocates for that, for the industry. I don't see anybody else in the space fighting for that. I'm sure there's some folks in the Fortune 100 that are having these discussions with the top brass, enlightening Google. I'm sure Google is saying, hey, don't mess with me, okay? Putting this whole thing in, better not be screwing and trying to charge me $1 million a year for this data. But that's just a couple folks, and I'm sure they'll give it away to Google for free so that they can, you know what I mean? You get the square footage and then in the name, and then you make your money on all of us. So that's a big thing on pricing, right? And we wanted to talk about that on IoT node pricing.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Where are we on tariffs? I hear 10% coming in September. What's going on? I was looking at some of the stuff that is actually going to be affected, and on the offset that these tariffs actually do go into effect. It seems like for the lighting industry, it's not going to be the end-all be-all. There will be some fairly significant stuff. A lot of the minor stuff, though, like the electrical filament in Christmas tree lights under 200 watt and 100 watt, and ballasts for discharge lamps. That's a little bit bigger one, or tubes. But LED lamps, that's another one that might be a bigger hit. But I don't know. What are we hearing on the street? Is it going to be bad? Good?
Fixtures and controls will not be hit by this particular tariff. What we're seeing right now is a balancing out of, there's all sorts of categories. It isn't just China gets hit 10%. That's what you see in the headlines. That's what they want you to get excited about. But the reality is these tariffs are laid out against certain types of products and certain types of segments. The lighting industry was hit with an increase in tariffs back, about a year ago in September, October, right? And then they were looking at another one at the end of the year that it didn't end up going through. They were expecting one in July, that didn't go through. And then the buzz on the street was, here we go, September 1st, right? And so we've spoken with two totally different brokers, two of the biggest brokers in the market that are importing lighting fixtures. And both of them gave us the same exact feedback, which was these specific tariffs, the 10% increase, will not be applied to any light fixtures, LED fixtures that the typical LED project is going to be using them. So that's the good news. That doesn't mean, I think that we continue. This is just going to be a continuous topic. Every month we're going to continue to track this because it is painful. It's hurting our projects. It slows them down. If somebody thinks, oh, we're gonna get hit with a 10% tariff, let's wait, to see if it really happens.
The uncertainty factor is the killer of any project, and nobody likes that. And it seems like a lot of the the importers right now are front loading a lot of their inventories, in the hopes that they can hedge some of the impacts of tariffs. Not particularly these ones, but other ones, in general. So that's I think another thing to probably keep an eye on.
Yeah. Why don't we jump into talking about retro commissioning?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So what we wanted to do in this short segment was to, kind of tackle some of the frequently asked questions that are out there in the industry. And one of the things that had, come up in some of our conversations with folks is the use of the term retro commissioning. And what is retro commissioning? So I'll kind of throw it out there. What is retro commissioning, guys?
Tony, why don't you start with
retro? Okay, retro commissioning. So basically, I'd say, obviously when you get a project, the first time, the startup of that project, you have to commission it. You set everything up. There's a long list of things to do. And then the system is functioning, I guess, maybe 100% or maybe close. It depends on who did it. But then over time, things happen, gateways get unplugged, IT network changes happen, things get reset, batteries die. And then that's wherein, if no one has been servicing a system for several years, then the term retro commissioning comes in, is where we kind of go back and then we recommission it back to the day that it was intended to, the way that it was intended to run. I mean, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I think there's probably two levels. When I think of retro commissioning, I think of what you just said, which is kind of level one. And I think that I could tell in your tone you were a little hesitant to say bring it back to the day that it started, because usually the day it was started isn't all that great, right?
Right. Yeah, that's
what they were doing.
That's what I was saying. Depending on who did it, right?
Right. And then I think that goes into tier two, which is make it better, right? We've learned so much more about how to make these systems more efficient and effective in what they're supposed to be able to do. And other products have come out. I think a really good example, if you look at Enlighted, Daintree, and Adura or XPoint or whatever, all three of those have evolved a lot over the last 8-9 years. And if I took a project that was installed in 2011 by any one of those companies, I could go in now and add some of the new gen hardware that has a lot more features that you don't need to add it everywhere. You could add a little here, a little there. Maybe they did a project. Great example would be something like Enlighted going in and doing an Enlighted 1. Or even the networked Enlighted, and then coming back 5 years later. And right now they have the IoT, but maybe there'll be something new that you upload the software, and they had Bluetooth in those sensors, and they have different wireless technologies and processors, and with new firmware and those types of things, a whole new set of features come available that now we start to leverage, and now add this sensor, this sensor, this sensor, and boom, we have a completely different system. And I was talking with a particular kind of industry vet in the utility space that was really interested in participating or being able to bring utilities into retro commissioning, where they don't really think of that right now. They think about get the hardware and get the software in and then run, right? I think right now folks are really looking at what can I do to a system that's existing to make it better, and even let's figure out how to pay a rebate or a utility incentive for the gains that we get from doing it better than it did, when it was first done. So
exactly,
that's what I see.
Yeah. And I would say, I would add to that, because we did leave off one piece that when you mentioned make it better. Yes, the other thing was that all of these control systems are new emerging technologies, especially 7 years ago, hell, maybe even 2 years ago, things have changed. And the big piece that we're seeing when we look on these older systems is when I get on them, I'm like, wow, this software is old, right? And so one of the big things we do is we upgrade the software, we move them to the cloud. Before they were on premise, where there could be more maintenance that has to be handled by the IT and the facility people. Now we move them to the cloud, we upgrade them. Some of these systems are like 8-9 versions behind, and like I said, it's emerging technology, so things are a lot better. And because they're advanced network systems, we're able to upgrade the firmware in all of the controllers and all of the switches and all of the sensors. So now we have a system that is way more robust than it was initially. And this is software. So this can happen. Look at your Windows computer, like every Tuesday of every month, the first Tuesday, it gets an update. Your phone, the same thing. You get updates all the time. Your apps are always updating. These kind of systems always need updating. So to the utility company that you mentioned, yes, like you gave this big rebate to get this energy saving system going, but no one's ever maintaining it and managing it and making sure that it is saving you the energy that it was intended to save. And that's like the big thing that I think we shouldn't have to do retro commissioning. You should have a company like us who helps service your system every month, every year.
So it never gets to the point where you
never get to that point, because you lose money for 5 years, 6 years. Some of these companies lose money because it's not operating. Sometimes I'm surprised that no one has complained.
Right.
It's pretty interesting.
Right.
Me too. Right.
Well,
I mean, I
Nothing
guess
another
if the light is on, no one will ever complain. But
Right.
the fact that it's on 24/7 is
even
bad.
then, yeah, then nobody's going to complain. It's when it's off, that it happens. Yeah, and I think another piece that is important about retro commissioning is the fact that yes, it's bringing the system back to its originally designed intent, and that versus buying a new system, because this is all software, you don't need to replace the actual hardware like you used to have to do with a T8 to a T5 or super efficient and so on and so on and so forth. So like you're saying, Tony, it is far cheaper to retro commission your system, bring it up to speed, and then continually monitor it than rip it out and put in a new one, right? Just because this manufacturer, the system stopped working, it stinks, I'm going to put in this other one because I think it's going to be better. But in 5 years, it's going to be the same exact thing. It's going to
Exactly.
do the same exact thing.
The same notion of that is when you buy a Samsung Galaxy S7 and it's running Android 8, and then a year later you can load Android 9 or Android 10 or whatever, and you still have the same phone, but you have all these new features and stuff. And that's what the lighting control system should be. You don't have to rip things out, just upgrade them. I mean, eventually you probably will, but for the most part, software upgrades.
So let me bring it to 2 points. 1 point is sales, one point is project management. So on the sales side, I would say that it's important for the industry to know that if you walk into a building, just because they have a control system in there doesn't mean it works. Just because the facility guy says that they have a control system that works doesn't mean it works. Mm-hmm. And it would be valuable for anyone to have a look at that system, because we have on multiple occasions taken what seemed to be a lost project, and after looking into the system realized not only is there a real project here, but the system wasn't even implemented properly, wasn't designed properly, and the types of changes that we can make can actually create a real project. We've sold $500,000 projects on retro commissioning because they were missing half the goodies, right? Because they were being cheap on the front side, and now they're looking at it and saying, I thought I was getting the real deal. You cut out half the good stuff, right? So don't walk out of a building. I've had so many times where people are like, I already have a building control system. Yeah, I bet you do. Now let's look at it, okay? Because we want to make sure, just like, you're at the doctor's and they're like, hey, how's your health? I got all that. Don't worry about it. What do you mean you got it all? Yeah, of course. You got your heart, you got lungs. Do they actually work? Let me get the stethoscope out. I mean, it's lunacy to say, since I have it, it works. I mean, that means you've never looked at it before, right? Then on the operation side, it's really important to have somebody that knows these systems. So, we're not experts in every system. So bringing us into every different type of system isn't necessarily the right thing. We have a half a dozen systems that we're experts in, and so we're the right people for that. But find somebody, if you run into whatever type of system, digital lumens and lighted, Autoni, get in there, bring the right folks in, bring that manufacturer in. Hey, I want you to come evaluate the system. Oh God, I remember that project 10 years ago. I can't believe it's still in there. Yeah, I bet. So, get them in there and have them evaluate this thing with you and give you the tools to actually build a proper project out of it. And then you're going to be really at the cutting edge. You're going to have a customer for life, because they won't have even realized how many problems you just saved for them.
Right. And I think, just to add one more thing, that I think that people need to look, when they look at a lighting control system or a smart building system, that system, it's like a laptop running an OS. It's like a mobile phone running apps. And guess what's happening on your computer? There are engineers that are actually getting feedback from issues that people are having, and they're working through those bugs, and they're building new patches and upgrades for you. And that just happens. Like on your phone, on my Android phone, almost every month I get an app that needs to be upgraded. That's because engineers, software engineers, are working in the background to make your app or your system, your experience better. And that's the same thing. If you leave your system disconnected, then nobody can help you.
It's never going to run efficiently. It's never going to be optimized. We've all experienced the blue screen of death on our computers, and then you get the little notification that says, "Do you want to send report?" send a report because they will fix the problem. You know. But yeah, I think that's exactly the point, Tony. So.
Great. Well, we need to wrap it up.
Yeah, we do.
So I just want to just say a couple words and say, you know, whatever we're doing here, we're really doing it for our viewers. This is something that we're trying to do to help those in the industry, to give back a little bit of our experience. So if you're new to the channel and you want to subscribe, please subscribe. Please follow us so you can get your notifications on when we post a new video. And most importantly, comment and let us know some of the things that you're interested in, and because we are really happy to talk about and deal with issues and research issues. If you have some specific topics and you've run into problems, you know, let us know what those problems are. If we don't have the answers, we'll go out and research and we'll get the experts in here, and we'll get some solid content for you. So. But we really appreciate everybody that's listening to the program, and we just we're very honored to have you joining us, and hope that we make this a really valuable experience for everybody. So, fantastic.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's great. And I would just do one last plug. Make sure if you're an electrical contractor that you go to beyondthewatt.com and take the survey about IoT and utility incentives. So other than that, definitely subscribe. And yeah, that was good.